Welcome back to the Crownening. The Crownening. I am Lauren Schill, and I am with our host for the Crownening, Zombie Hannah Moses. Or do you get to be Zombie Hannah for this one?
No, I like the three name.
I like it.
I feel like a show dog where they have those fancy names.
Fair. Yeah.
Fair. We're in a regal setting. I feel like I'm a pretty doggy.
This week's episode we are covering is called Pride and Joy. Hannah, why do we call them Pride and Joy?
Because one of them is his pride and the other is his joy.
Yes. We're going to figure that out.
Wait.
Spoilers.
But the other.
But. Yeah, there's a whole line. There's a whole very significant line about
We'll get
but
there.
Being the other. But being
She has to have something.
Yes.
Just something.
We have been experimenting with how to do these episodes. As you've probably noticed, our watch throughs have gone a little long. So we're going to experiment with not watching it and just talking about it this time.
Yeah.
And
I got
see
distracted
how that goes.
a lot.
It's a good show.
It's cinematic.
It's a good show.
You gotta stop, and it's just like to blink and you'll miss it. And I think that's why we were
There's
just
a
like
lot of moments like that, which I think is why we both the raw recordings kind of get distracting, but also like we end up talking about situations that do get kind of complicated. A lot. I mean, this first season really is building up a lot of plot lines that nobody's thinking about right now.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to...
in the background.
Yeah, there's a reason that they're mentioned in the first season, so there's a reason we should probably talk about them.
Yes, and then we end in the weeds. But it is just that kind of show where it's just... you're setting up a family dynamic as well. Because these scars come from long time ago. Oh my God, how many times do we hear about the abdication still?
Oh my God.
It's still in every episode.
Even in this episode, we hear about it.
Even this episode. And it's not going to be the last time that we hear about it either.
No.
Yeah. So it's just, we did a little note taking. And so we'll be able to just go by and kind of discuss as we get through the episode.
All right. So do you want to get started?
Yes. We are going to get a little quick blurb. The episode description kind of just gives us a little overview of what we're talking about.
Yeah. So for the setup for this one, we're instead of watching ourselves through the episodes, Hannah has taken a lot of good notes, and she's going to kind of walk us through the scenes, and we're going to go through the plot line. And we've each taken a couple different storylines that we both want to focus on.
Mm-hmm. I'm very excited about the travel dresses. We'll get there. So Pride and Joy, episode 8 of season 1. It says, the Queen and Philip embark on an exhausting world journey. Mm-hmm. Margaret takes over some of her sister's official duties and tries to liven things up.
Tries and succeeds. She definitely liven
things up.
For sure.
But yeah, we know how individuals do in this family.
Yeah.
Even to this day.
There's a whole thing. Yeah.
All right. So, Lauren, this first scene we open up with Cookie looking out the window, emotionless. Mm-hmm. Like, clearly, she's dressed in black. We're getting ready for a big event. And then somebody comes up behind her and puts the pearls on.
Mm-hmm. As you have to do with the British royal family with the pearls.
Pearls. Pearls are understated but elegant for the occasion. That's how I think of pearls.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, literally, when I went to high school in Georgia, like, the look was polos and pearls.
Oh, I remember that time.
Yes, it was a look.
It was a look.
And it was to show that Daddy bought me my pearls.
Yeah.
But also I fit in because I'm in Georgia. So
Also,
polos.
yes. Pearls. Right now, pearls are hot on TikTok Live. Watching the people who take the pearls out of the, is it clam? Oysters. Thank you. It's just fascinating to watch. And they come out in such crazy shapes.
Are you talking about the ones that, like, keep them alive to harvest the pearls? Or just harvesting them?
I don't know. That's a good question.
There's a couple different companies now that do, like, I guess ethical harvesting, where, like, they don't kill the oysters.
Yeah.
They'll kind of very slightly pry.
That's what they're
open,
doing.
And then they take a little scooper and they scoop it out, and then they feed it again. They put another irritant in and stick it back in the water. But, like, they don't kill the oyster.
I don't think this is the ethical kind.
And then they put it.
I'm not seeing any of that in the live. I'm just seeing them open up the oyster.
Yeah.
Take these little, like, gently pushing it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know what they do with it after. So I feel like a bad...
The meat isn't good to eat. It's going to be all gritty and sandy, right? So, yeah.
Anyway, but yes. So
we got distracted already.
I know. That's just the nature of me.
Pearls. She's looking out the window with pearls on her necklace.
Pearls. Shiny smooth. Okay.
Oh, God. Anyway.
All right. So we didn't even get past the first shot. Because we talked about pearls. Anyway, she asks the attendant to get her daughters and bring them in. Mm-hmm. And so when the daughters come, they're discussing, Cookie says she just can't do it. She can't bear it. It's just too much. And so it seems like they're talking about, because Margaret goes, well, I'll do the speech for you.
Yeah, as we find out, because they're setting up for basically a memorial. So we're finding out as it unfolds, King George is going to have his statue unveiled. And Cookie was supposed to be the person who gave the speech and who did all of that. But she's getting emotional. She can't.
Yeah.
She like her heart can't take it to be talking about her husband, looking at a statue of him and having to talk about it. That would really suck. And so Margaret, ever eager to try and, help out and wanting a little bit of the spotlight that she envies of her sister so much, she's like, yeah, I'll do the speech. No problem. Cookie is
just distraught.
There's a whole speech that she is expected to give at the unveiling of her husband's statue, and she is realizing that she just doesn't have the heart to do it. And Margaret, basically knowing that she's a daddy's girl, she was Birdie's favorite.
She's a daddy's girl.
She is more than happy to give the speech.
Yeah.
And she says so. She's
like it's about Papa, and I know Papa, and I'm Papa's favorite.
Were
you going to say favorite?
Well, I mean, it's not like we're pretending, right?
Exactly. She's just like, well, everybody do.
So Elizabeth is not okay with that. She kind of says, all right.
It makes no sense.
It doesn't make sense. It's my job. It's my duty to do the speech. So I'll do it.
Yeah.
Which sucks for Margaret.
Well, yeah, it does. Because she's like, it just comes out very, very cold. That makes no sense.
It comes out entitled.
It does.
Like if our mom's not going to do it, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
You don't get to do it.
Yeah. Well, Margaret asks Cookie, well, what do you think as head of the family?
Oh, and Elizabeth says, well, she's not the head of the family. I am. And what I say goes, and I'm going to do the speech.
Yep. And that's where that scene ended. All right. And she just walks out. And that's it.
That's it.
And we move on to the statue unveiling ceremony.
And of course, it's another very stilted speech because Elizabeth isn't really much for public speaking. It's very calm. It's very measured. Obviously, she didn't write it. Someone wrote it for her.
Oh, it went through like 10 people before she even saw it.
Exactly. In this moment, as they're unveiling, you can see the emotion flash through Cookie's face. And you can see the frustration flash through Margaret's face.
Oh, yeah.
And it's meant to be this nice tribute to King George.
It's raining.
It's raining. It's devastating. It's
cold,
reminding everyone
probably.
of this person that they loved so much and that they lost. It's a really sad scene. And it ends with Cookie basically taking off before everyone else.
Dipped out early.
She dips out early and she gets into the car so that she can kind of have a moment of privacy and break down and cry. Yeah, she's very sad.
Of course.
And basically, this is kind of the start of her idea that she just doesn't really want to be around London anymore. She's kind of over it. She wants to step away. She wants to kind of have her own little... It's time for her life. It's time for Cookie's time.
It's Cookie's time.
It's Cookie's time.
Mm-hmm.
For freedom.
Cookie time.
Cookie time. It's cookie time. Cookie White Castle.
All right, so our next scene is the Gibraltar briefing. So we come in to like a briefing room where we're getting news footage being displayed from Gibraltar about all the civil unrest that's going there. Somebody's throwing Nazi salutes.
For those uneducated like we were.
We were.
Gibraltar is on the south end of Spain.
I wrote in my notes, Egypt, ?
It's a British territory on the southern end of Spain. Just so everyone's aware. And probably y'all knew that before we did, but...
I got a C in geography.
No wonder you got a C.
I got a D in geometry. Math and geography are not my subjects.
That's funny. My whole family visited me when I was in Seattle, and we took a ferry over to Poulsbo so that we could go to Sly's Bakery, which has just some of the best pastries in the world. So fucking good. I
Name
miss
drop.
it. I miss Poulsbo. It's a cute little town. But we were on the ferry, and some of the tables and stuff have like little puzzles. And one of them was a map of the world. And so as like a little family, like, Hannah took like North and South America and Brandon took like Eurasia and I took Africa and like Australia.
Yeah.
And we were just like dividing it up and just kind of putting all
playing Risk.
Not even playing Risk, just putting the puzzle together in a shockingly quick, like, it was just kind of fun to see like all of us had a general idea
General idea
of where some stuff was, but like we didn't finish the puzzle. There were plenty of places I was like, I don't know where the fuck this piece goes.
Yeah. We were at the unveiling of the statue. Cookie is sobbing in the car.
She's having her little moment, and then we're kind of looking at this back and forth. Oh no, we're talking about Gibraltar.
Gibraltar,
Winston
thank you.
is giving the briefing for
Gibraltar in Spain.
And the situation there.
Yes. So it's basically what they're highlighting is that this is, this was part of the tour to go to Gibraltar, and that this is clearly showing, anti-monarchist sentiment. Other countries have recently, gotten their independence. And so it's too dangerous. They don't want the Queen to go. Yeah. And Churchill's pushing for her to go. That it's too important, that it suggests that we're weak if we don't go. And everybody else is like, no, we recommend you skip Gibraltar. She's not ready. And that they're doing this out of her own interest. And he goes...
So let's introduce the idea of why she was going to Gibraltar in general.
Oh, yes, anyway. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
So Elizabeth and Philip are about to embark on literally a world tour. They're going to all of the British territories, and they're going to tour around and see all of the subjects around the world. They're going to give all their speeches. They're going to go be seen. And Gibraltar is one of the stops on this 26-week tour.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oof. So Winston's giving the debriefing for Gibraltar, basically saying, like, this is a dangerous place and you probably shouldn't go to this one. And Elizabeth kind of insists, I'm going to go anyway. Like, I have to.
Well, we haven't gotten to her yet.
Oh, yeah, no. That's the concept. The reason we're going to be talking about Gibraltar. The reason this is important is because it is one of the stops on the tour that Elizabeth is about to go on.
So the guys in the office who don't want her to go are telling him to skip it. Tell her we don't think she's ready for it.
Yeah.
And the Churchill says, no, you are patronizing her. You are absolutely patronizing. He believes in Her Majesty.
Yeah.
In the crown, in Elizabeth, which I wrote, yes. I just love their relationship.
He does really seem to have he puts a lot of faith in her. He really does. I think he can see her father's caring and her father's heart in Elizabeth, and he really loved that about Bertie. Yeah. So I think the fact that that's kind of passed on has given him a little bit of a soft spot for Elizabeth.
Yeah. Well, not to mention that she pretty much gave him a dressing down in that last episode. And I think he sees that she has what it takes. Yeah. She stood up to the prime minister, who's decades as her senior.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's the scene I'm really excited about.
All right.
The travel dresses. So for this tour, it's now established that she's getting ready. And so in order to get ready for the tour, she's got to have
the looks. You got to have the looks.
But what am I going to wear?
Designers. Make it work.
Yeah. Oh.
What?
You just reminded me of Project Runway.
I know.
Oh, that was just like a little
girl. I saw a girl out last night who had I just said it's overalls, but make it fashion. Like she had one of her straps over this way, and then the other one was like back wrapped around and like around her wrist. And it was a whole thing.
She made it work.
Was a look, yeah. And I was like, well, you got to give us the nice little turnaround.
You got to show me the whole outfit.
Yeah, we had to have a whole little woo moment.
Excellent. Hype her up.
Yep.
Let's go.
For sure.
She's going to be doing things in 5 years. But yeah, so we have the fashion show. They have to literally put on a whole fashion show for her. They bring I think 4 or 5 models that are just continuously walking.
I think there's 10 of them.
You think that probably some behind the little partition.
End, it shows all 10 of them standing next to each other, or however many. There's a bunch.
Yeah, there are a bunch. You're right. Of people. They all did a little curtsy at the end. I even made a note. They all literally lined up and did a curtsy. But during the whole fashion show, they don't stop moving. I could not get that out of my head. And at one point, the queen's not even paying attention, and they're still posing for someone at the end.
Yeah. Because that's their job.
It was my favorite part. Yeah. I'm like, girl, get that money. You're here. Do the work. So her stylist, the queen's stylist, is showing options for the upcoming tour, and he makes I said we see a line of them sashaying down the mini runway, and he drops a line of all the countries that they're going to, and it starts out Bermuda, Jamaica, and I immediately just go,
I want to take you to Bermuda.
And he keeps going with other countries, but all of my mind heard was exactly what Lauren was saying.
Key Largo, Montego.
Yes.
Baby,
why don't we go down to Kokomo? But we'll not too fast,
and then we'll take it slow.
Why did I say, but not too fast? We're gonna take it slow. I don't know. Anyway, that's basically, he lines up all the countries. And so he was saying how hot they're going to be. It's going to be really, really hot. So we're designing with light organzas and silk and light breathable fabrics.
Yeah, all these fabrics that can breathe in the hot, hot, hot.
So with the
theoretically,
dresses,
anyway.
Yes, theoretically. Theoretically, it's going to be easier. But I took a little note.
36 hats or some shit.
I was going to get
crazy amount of hats.
He does do this, but I did put a note here to see the dresses we're seeing in the background, just for anybody who hasn't took a moment to pause and look at them all. The first dress to the left that I saw was a pale seafoam green, kind of. It was a sleeveless, and she had a fur shawl.
Yeah.
There was a dark navy blue number. It had a simple little line skirt or A-line skirt hitting about mid-calf, and it was a light belt to mix it up.
Ooh.
They were all fairly, modest, but very beautifully done. Yes,
they're very much her style with the fitted top and then the bell bottom T length dresses.
I forget if that's I don't know if it's A-line is I think the term. Somebody who knows more about the design aspect of clothing might be able to point this out.
No, so it's a ball gown waist.
Yes,
and then it goes out, but it's a T length dress.
Oh, tea, tea. You're having tea.
Yes, you're having tea.
Ah,
and that was the length she
All right,
wore.
You're my garment person. You're gonna tell me if I'm describing things wrong.
Okay.
All right, excellent. Because I want to be as accurate as I can.
I'm not a professional. That's one of the very few things I know, but it's not an A-line.
But I've never sewn anything, so
an A-line is literally it kind of has a smooth transition from the bodice to
not what we
the
were
waist.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay, I was wrong, and I'm glad I learned something today.
Think Cinderella,
yes,
Belle. All of those have the fitted bodice and then the big poofy skirt.
Yes.
Ball gown,
but they cut off right above the ankle. Or some of them were floor length.
That's T length.
Yeah, so she had a lot of T length dresses, and then I think one was a more formal, long gown. But anyway, so the stylist is then telling her about how each country they go to, they're going to have native flowers of that country, and somewhere highlighted in her looks.
Yeah, they're going to try and really focus on being culturally aware of where she's going to be going with the outfit that she's going to be wearing.
It just is
as much as you can.
Yes, and it's got to be intimidating because you're in high scrutiny mode. Like, think back about how badly people made fun of Will and Kate when they went to like Jamaica and Bermuda. So yes, now we're at the point where after he kind of talks about the flowers and kind of incorporating them, the queen asks how many dresses? How 100 dresses?
100.
How many hats? 36. Yeah, 36 hats.
3 dozen hats.
How many pairs of shoes?
50?
You're right. It was
Really?
50 pairs of shoes.
Good Lord.
Because, you can reuse those.
Yeah. And you can reuse hats, apparently.
But not dresses.
I feel like you could...
Once your body touches that fabric, it's over.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Forgot about that.
God. We have oils. Anyway, I wrote down, honestly, for a 23-week journey, though, it was...
Yeah, it was like 23 to 26 weeks. That's half a year.
And she has multiple engagements a day. So, I guess it's not as ridiculous, but she herself realizes this still sounds like a lot.
This is so much work and so much fabric and so much. To me, that's like so much waste.
It is a lot of waste.
God. Who even is going to wear those dresses when she's done with them for that one day?
I guess you auction them off.
Really?
Sometimes, like celebrities do that stuff. They auction off some of their stuff when they need to fundraise, or they give their stuff to fundraisers, and then they'll auction off something for a cause.
Yeah, I get that.
But so I love the way that Liz put it. She said, "Can't we economize?"
Yeah,
I liked how she phrased that. I'm gonna start saying
shrink it down just a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. And so the stylist says that no, the government, the top of government says they want to put their best foot forward. Mm-hmm. So 100 dresses. Mm-hmm. So then the models all curtsy in a line, and we move on to our next scene, where I forgot to title these scenes. Where basically Philip is getting ready and complaining, and they're getting ready for the tour or an event.
Yeah.
And so he's mentioning how ridiculous this all is.
Yep. In that way, I think they're both pretty pragmatic. They both understand how wasteful this is. But Elizabeth understands the political necessity of it.
Yeah.
And Philip just can't get past the fact that it is so condescending to so many people around the world.
Yes. So what Philip mentions is that it all seems a bit ridiculous because so many countries have become independent. Mm-hmm. And he himself saw that with how the monarchy's on its way down, at least in terms when he was in Greece. And so he calls their role as kind of like a Band-Aid. He says, we're a coat of paint.
Yes. On like what is essentially a rotting away house.
Exactly. And so he calls he's getting fitted. So he's got a little guy. Oh my God. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that.
A guy.
Why did I say little guy? I sound like an elitist. I had $4 to my name.
It made me think like an elf or like a little house of elves that does
like
your shoes.
Dobby?
No, like the shoe elves, you know.
Oh,
the tailor elves.
Yeah, no, it was his tailor. It's his tailor, just a guy. But he's got his tailor there. He's fitting in the pants and stuff, and Philip keeps calling it a costume. Because that's how he sees it.
And the man tries to correct him, and he says, it's a uniform, sir. And he's like, well, uniforms are for battles. Uniforms are for actually, like, doing military things. This is all costume. This is all show. It's all theater. It's all bullshit.
It's all basically. Pomp and circumstance.
So much pomp and circumstance. Mm-hmm. And Philip has been a man of action, is a man of sport.
And all of that has been taken away.
And now he is nothing more than a trophy husband in a trophy uniform. And his entire job for this upcoming tour that they're going to be on is literally to stand next to his wife, wave, and smile. That's it. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have lines. He doesn't have speeches. There's no point at which he is invited to speak anywhere. It's his wife's trip. And he is literally there as arm candy.
He knows it.
And he knows it.
He's good arm candy, Matt Smith.
And he knows how wasteful it is.
Yeah.
He knows how dumb and wasteful it is.
Yeah. Well, so that's the last we see of Philip for a little bit, because now we're sitting in the office with Cookie, who's getting a loving visit from Tommy.
Cookie.
Who's retired, but he still works for Cookie, essentially.
He's still looking out for her, yeah.
Yeah. And he's kind of just going over her calendar.
Because she still has a social calendar to kind of go through. And she is engaged for a number of speeches while Elizabeth and Philip are gone on their tour.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's kind of going through that with her, like, here's what the plan is. And this is kind of where she's like, I just want to be gone. I want to go away.
Yeah, to Scotland.
Yep. She wants to run away to Scotland. And so she makes a decision that she's going to be gone for a while. She just wants to be out of the spotlight, out of the queenly life that she's so used to. And is at this point at which she kind of has him reassign she has Lascelles reassign these speeches to Margaret. And so Margaret's going to take all these engagements.
Yeah. Says that one. She needs to shine, that one.
She really does. She needs to be given a chance to do that.
Yeah. Which is like the only motherly thing I think I've seen from Cookie so far.
I think there is a certain amount of mothering that she...
Like nice, sweet kind of, that she's thinking of how her daughter feels, that she's in the shadow. She's got nothing to do.
Oh, for sure. Very much so. But I think she also tried to do a really good job of being aware of, like, Elizabeth's needs.
Yeah.
And... because we kind of saw that a little bit with the education thing, where she was saying, Elizabeth was confronting her and saying, like, hey, I don't think you did me any favors by not having me educated the way that everyone else is. And she's like, we did what was told to us would be the best thing. Like, I don't know. She literally was never given an opportunity to know anything different.
Yeah, I can see a little bit of that. Yeah. Where it is, it's like it's kind of how I am with my mom and the Adderall stuff, where like I was, prescribed Ritalin and Concerta and all the stimulant medications, but it did nothing for one of the big underlying problems, and we just hit so many roadblocks. And it's like, but my mom was like, but I went to neurologists, I went to a psychiatrist, like I talked to your general doctor.
I did everything that I possibly could do as a mom. And
so all of that anger with me had gone away, because I'm like, well, I get it. If I'm going to doctors right now and I'm doing stuff based off their advice, so it is. I guess I can really see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this episode kind of made me really like Cookie a little more.
Cookie grows on you, for sure. She
does. She's like the stick in the mud that you're like, aw, you're being cranky.
I like her storyline in this. And when I kind of fact checked it, the story that we're going to talk about with her actually takes place before. In history, it takes place before the tour goes on. Okay. So it's not all of this is happening at the same time. But for dramatic purposes,
this is the narrative it's all happening purpose.
At the same moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Which a lot of these historical shows do.
Yeah.
And I think The Crown's a little bit more faithful to events that happened, not so much conversations.
I think it's events and how they tied in with each other.
Yeah. Like cause and effect. But a show like The Tudors, they just threw straight facts out the window.
Yeah, they wanted to
fit more sex scenes in there.
Yeah, they wanted to have some more fucking on TV.
Yeah, they did. But yeah, so Cookie gives over some tasks to Margaret. Let that girl shine. And speaking of the devil, we're going on to Margaret. Our next scene, Margaret's on the phone with Peter.
Peter Townsend.
Group Captain Peter Townsend. Group Captain Peter Townsend. Group Captain Peter Townsend. Oh, that's a fun one. I'm going to be doing that every time he's in an episode.
Okay, done.
You're like, yes. So Margaret's on the phone with Peter. He's in Brussels. So he's in his assignment / banishment, as Margaret thinks of it.
You're just kind of talking about his little office life.
Yeah.
What does he
What
actually
are you doing
do?
right now? And he's like,
nothing.
Yeah, nothing. And so she asks if he's alone in the office. And he says, oh, yes, this guy assistant is here helping me out or whatever. Just kind of like slyly letting her know, no, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And it's awful. She asks, is he watching you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he listening to you all the time? Oh,
yeah.
yes. Oh, yes.
Oda.
And so we're basically getting told he's under absolute watch and everything. And so Peter confirms that he's being listened to, and she's dreading this, like, oh, this is going to be going on for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like Peter's also dreading the 2-year wait. They both kind of get a little quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And so Margaret tells him that she feels alone, like she misses him, like he's not there to guide her, to help her, and to support her. And she says she feels like she's lost, she's unanchored. I like that term too, unanchored.
Mm-hmm.
And
unmoored is, I think, the more common term, but it's the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. You're just getting a sense of the fact that they're both trying to pull through.
Yep.
They're trying to pull through, but it's daunting. Like 2 years, so much can happen in 2 years. He could meet so many people. She could meet so many people.
A really long time, especially when it's long distance.
Oh,
that's rough.
And you only get phone conversations, and it has to be secretive, essentially.
Yeah, it's not like you can go visit each other a couple times a year or whatever.
You can't pull Charles and Camilla and have phone sex.
What?
Did you not know about that?
Let's get into that later. I cannot wait for our Camilla episodes when those come up in future seasons. But let's talk about it then.
Yeah. Oh, dang it. Because you go look it up later.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, you will. It's not news. It's old news now. But that's kind of where we leave, for the moment, Margaret and Peter, because they have to wait.
Yep.
There's nothing else they can do besides this phone calls.
They're just commiserating about the fact that they gotta wait.
Yeah. So Cookie says goodbye to Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
She drops by and goes, well, I'm off, which I thought was so cute. That's me.
She is kind of cute. Her squeaky little voice, and she does kind of just have this sweet little demeanor, like, okay, I'm going.
Which is kind of terrifying.
And you're going.
We know she's cutthroat too.
Whoa, yeah. Like,
which is terrifying.
You see the soft side of her in here, but you also, like, I think this is also showing a little bit of a moment of, like, you're passing the baton. Like, well, you're about to take off on this thing. I'm about to do my thing.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Passing the baton.
Yeah, she says that the girls don't need her anymore. Yes. And Lizzie tries to deny this, but she goes, no, you haven't needed me for a while. You're both women grown. Mm-hmm. You're adults. There's nothing left that I need to be here for, essentially. And so she's kind of, I think, entering her retirement phase.
Yeah. And I think that's a nice, proud moment for her as a mom.
Absolutely. Yeah. She seems a little sad, obviously.
There's a little wistfulness. Because she's not sharing that with her husband. But also, I think she's more than happy to be kind of stepping into the shadows now.
Yeah.
Like, let's just take a step back.
Yeah.
Life away from the crown is like.
Mm-hmm. I know. Having nothing to do here is really hurting her as well. Because, like, she's going through grief. The last thing you want is nothing. So while Cookie is leaving, she's about to leave, she reminds Elizabeth to make some room for Margaret. She's like, I feel like you, being the older sister, you'd be more confident. You'd be, more able to share this limelight. And Liz thinks she is. She's like, I am. And then Cookie's, are you?
No. Elizabeth's kind of a little bit of a jealous bitch. And she has been since Group Captain Peter Townsend. Group Captain Peter Townsend.
Group Captain Peter Townsend.
Since he like kind of came in and showed that Margaret actually could like steal the show and really did have a lot more personality than Elizabeth had.
Yeah.
I just don't think Elizabeth liked that.
No, she did not. That's exactly right when, like, right after that huge photo incident when she got off the plane and everybody was like roaring for Peter, and she just cut him right there. She learned.
Yep.
But I don't know. I still don't know entirely the reasons why, like, other members of the family can't have their popularity moment, but.
We are going to talk about it in this episode, but I mean, she's envious. Mm-hmm. She's envious of the fact that Margaret seems to have an easier time in the spotlight. And it seems like people maybe like Margaret more. It seems like, people are more familiar with Cookie, and so maybe they enjoy Cookie more. She does have a little bit of that kind of inferiority complex because she is such a soft-spoken person. Her personality doesn't come out to shine near as much, and I wonder if that's not what they're trying to portray, is like this idea that, even though I'm the queen, I have inferiority complex. I feel lesser than these other people.
Right.
And we're going to talk about that
Which is so weird because like there's so many compilation videos of the queen having a personality and making little jokes and kind of going, ha ha.
Well, we've talked about this before too, where like the creators of this show definitely felt a certain way about the family and about the queen. So
they probably don't want to highlight that part too much. And it's not like she was known for it.
And they do let her little bits of personality come out here and there, but I
usually
think
in private.
That people are layered. She probably had plenty of personality moments,
onions,
and also plenty of inferiority moments.
Like, ogres are like onions,
exactly, and queens are like onions too.
But cakes have layers.
Queens are like parfaits.
Yes,
parfaits have layers,
trifles, if you will. But Cookie reminds Liz to let Margaret shine, that she needs to make room. And we left off with Cookie going, I don't know. And she just kind of leaves. So our next scene, we come in where Margaret is got a sword. And I knew how this episode was going to go, but every time I immediately see her with the sword and she puts it up, I'm just like, oh God. Watch out. You don't want an individual with a sword. So she's practicing knighting and the queen comes in, Liz, and she tells Liz to get on her knees to help her practice. And so Liz says, I hope you have a steady hand. And Margaret jumps on this and she asks, well, do you have a guilty conscience, perhaps? Have a think. And so we arrive at the Peter debacle coming up.
Group Captain Peter
Townsend. Group Captain Peter Townsend. Okay.
Yeah.
So Margaret confirms, yes, that's it. And she is meanwhile putting the sword down
on the flat edge. You got to do it on the flat edge.
Yeah, she didn't do that at first. No. It starts to dig into Liz's shoulder, and she has to remind Margaret to use the flat edge. It's a bit firm. Being her best at, not riling things up. We need to have that mentality.
We're going to be calm about this.
She's going to do her best.
Also get that the fuck off my shoulder.
And so Liz asks, how is Peter? And Margaret tells her he's getting through it like a strong man.
Yep.
Like strong men do. Mm-hmm. He was being watched. He's being photographed. Like people like journalists are always trying to put him into honeypot traps. Try to distract him from Margaret to catch him in a compromising position. So, really getting across that you have literally made his life hell.
Yeah.
And so Liz is like, oh, you're imagining things, which is like, girl, you're gaslighting.
Yes. She's absolutely gaslighting because she feels guilty about the fact that her own jealousy of Group Captain Peter Townsend got him sent away.
Yeah.
And now she's being called out on it.
She even minimizes it, and it's not for that much longer. Yeah. And Margaret's like, 2 years.
That's a long time.
And then Liz, my God, just goes, well, the first few months will go flying by while you're filling in.
They will. Yeah.
My God. She's very steely. It's hard. I just was like, dude, what the fuck? And so Margaret's like, well, I'll try not to upstage you. Mm-mm. And Liz is just like, oh, how kind.
Yeah.
And so it's really showing the difference in attitude to the job. So in this conversation, we're really seeing that they have two totally different attitudes on how they want, or not how they want, but how they think is appropriate for being a monarch.
Yes.
Completely separate attitudes. And Liz is just trying her best to just be like, okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, okay. And
Sure, whatever.
Exactly.
Everyone has opinions.
Yeah, and Margaret's not letting it go. And she says she can't promise that she won't bring her own character to it. And pointedly states that she has character to bring.
Yeah, she's really trying to rub this in Elizabeth's face. She's not happy with her. And it's really frustrating because you can also see like the struggle that Elizabeth's having because she understands the assignment of you actually have to like you have to control your personality as the queen, as the monarch. You have to not really have that part of you shine. It's supposed to be about the title, about the crown, about the family, instead of about the one person. And Margaret has not gotten that yet. And she's basically highlighting like, well, I'm gonna have fun with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be me and be,
Yep.
yeah, funny and witty. And so
basically everything that Elizabeth's not.
Exactly. And so Liz, it really looked like in her face she was holding back anger, because it's like, girl, your sister's coming for you right now. And she just goes, too much character, in excess of character.
Yep.
And a big thing to note is that I wrote down, this is something a long time issue that the monarchy has faced a lot, just in the last couple of generations of monarchs, where the public has gotten to be a larger population. They're all much more condensed in cities. They're all kind of around the hub. A lot of monarchs tend to be right there in the center of the city, like Buckingham Palace is in London right there.
Yep.
And it just becomes that, like, you see so much of the personality of people like Edward. People knew about him being a playboy. He got in it with, like, an escort, and then he fell in love with that escort and wrote her a bunch of really embarrassing letters, and that got out, and it's just, like, it becomes more of a liability.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what Liz is trying to kind of, you have to keep it, you have to rein it in. You've really got to rein it in. So Margaret throws yet another verbal punch. Here we go again. She goes, like, basically asking if her sister is envious of her for her character, for people liking her humor and having, a little something, like a little spark. And Liz just says, just remember who you're filling in for while I'm gone.
Yeah.
The crown. You're filling in for this bad boy right up here.
Right.
And Margaret goes, my characterless sister.
Yeah. She is really, really in with the barbs, and she's having a hard time with this. She is angry at Elizabeth, and just...
she's throwing shade.
Yeah. And she's also basically made up her mind that she's going to do it how she's going to do it, no matter what Elizabeth says.
Yeah, she's not budging.
But this is a little bit of that jealousy and envy that we kind of talked about before, and we're seeing that it goes both ways.
It does. We get to the other side of the coin in a minute, but the last thing Liz says in the scene is that so Margaret was like, oh, I'm filling in for my characterless sister, and Liz goes, you're queen, not a showgirl.
Yep.
Very big distinction here.
Huge distinction.
And that's where we move on to Liz and Philip getting out of the limo, or the town car. And, there's crowds of people there at an airport runway to the plane. And so everybody's there to wish them goodbye. The crowds are cheering.
And Winston's there to see them off and basically wishes her luck and kind of imparts a little bit of last minute comfort of like, and also like, remember, you're the face of the crown and it is important that we do this. People are relying on you. And
this tour is so important.
So important. No pressure, dude. So it's, they're like, okay, that's great. That's exactly what you want to hear right before you get on a plane off to fucking, I think they started in Jamaica or something like that. Or Bermuda.
Bermuda, yeah, that's it. He gives her a pep talk on the plane and reminds her that the empire is on shaky ground.
Yes.
Everything's about to crumble.
And this is an interesting point of view because we see it as like we live at the tail end of that, where we've seen these countries breaking off, they're declaring their independence, and we've seen all of this kind of slowly happen through war and, declarations and whatever. And we've also seen like how those countries have fared since independence. But this is the threat of all of that happening. This is before they start losing it.
They're trying to hold on.
They're trying desperately to hold on to all of these these countries and these little nations. And Winston is terrified that she's going to lose them all.
Yeah, I mean, he still has faith in her, but how much of that faith that we saw earlier, was it just because we need this tour, or does he really believe? And it seems like he tries to have her remember her father. Apparently her father had done this journey once, this tour. It's a tour they're supposed to do, like, I don't know how often they do it, but...
Well, she'd done it 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. So then, yeah, maybe it's like every 5 years, Mama checks in.
Basically.
How you doing? You need any snacks?
I'm still here. I still remember that you exist.
Just give me a call. You don't call your mother enough.
Don't call. Right. And then my people will talk to your people.
That's actually how it is.
Yeah.
But the other thing that he says is to think about her father on the journey, how his journey is the last tour they were on, but never let them see the real Elizabeth Windsor. The cameras, the television, never let them see.
And he really emphasizes that part. Like, you are the crown. You are not you.
Only let them see what you represent.
Yes.
Yeah. You represent the monarchy, but not that you're coming out there personally to say hi.
And with that, they get on the plane.
Yep.
And they fly away.
And they're flying.
They're getting going.
Yep. But we check in on Cookie. Cookie.
She gets
to Scotland.
She gets to Scotland. She's staying with her friends. And
the Vyers.
And the Vyers.
I don't know who they are.
She shows up and she's hanging out with the Vyers. And they're like, how was your journey? Do you want to sit down and rest? She goes, goodness, no. I've been sitting for such a long time. I want to go for a walk. And of course, they go for a horseback ride.
Yeah.
And they run, they go, literally, they're running on the beaches of Scotland, which is so
it was stunning.
And she has a great little comment about, like, it's such a beautiful place, but if it was easy to get to, people would all be here. It was a long journey. It's a hard, a hard path to go to get to where they live.
Yeah.
She
likes the solitude and the comfort or the quiet and the peace.
And so they have this nice horseback ride and they get to the point where they're having their dinner, and old man Vyers.
Yeah, I never got their first names. I just said man Vyer and woman Vyer.
Yeah, so man Vyer, he asks, like, how are you doing really? And Cookie has a moment of, like, real, she's letting herself kind of be open. And she basically says, it's hard to go from, I was a supportive point for my husband. I was there for
17 years.
17 years beside him through all of this stuff. I helped him make decisions. We suffered all of these things together. And now not only do I not have him anymore, but now I'm basically being pushed out of the spotlight altogether, because my daughters are now both grown and old enough to be able to do these things on their own, which I'm very happy for them, but also it's very lonely.
Yeah, what do I do?
Yeah, she doesn't have any idea kind of where her life goes from now on, because her girls are up and grown and doing what they learned how to do, and her job's well done.
Yeah.
And what now?
Yeah, she was saying it's so difficult because, like, she's an empty nester. She lost her purpose. She was queen, and now the head and the head of the family is now changed.
Yep.
Everything changed, and they've given it to a girl who is totally unequipped for it, which is interesting because she had just said that Liz doesn't need her anymore. To Liz, which I don't know if you saw anything in there.
That's a mother being supportive. That is a mother showing that she has faith publicly and showing support for Liz and saying, you got this, you can do this, I know you got it.
Yeah, maybe it's because she's so young that she believes maybe Liz shouldn't have had.
Well, Liz is also very naive, and she's pretty inexperienced, and there is a lot of political tension and turmoil around the world that's going on that she isn't equipped for because she hasn't had an experience with it, where Cookie did have quite a few years.
Got through World War II.
Yes. So she's very familiar with this, and she knows how hard it is. And I think she believes that Liz is a little too naive to be prepared truly for this.
She's going to be learning on the job now.
And while she's talking to Liz, she's telling her she's got faith in her, because she probably does. But in this moment of real pain, she's also showing worry that, like, I mean, I have faith in my daughter, but also, like, she isn't equipped for it. She isn't prepared for it. So it might, something bad might happen.
This might be her real first test on the international stage.
Yeah. And I don't know if I prepared her properly for it.
Okay. I think that makes much more sense to me now.
So she's feeling lonely, and she's kind of just feeling another unmoored kind of person. She doesn't really,
she's lost.
She doesn't have a reason either.
Yeah, but something fun happens in this conversation.
So they do talk about Cookie kind of wanting to stay out there.
You could be my neighbor.
Yeah.
Won't you be my neighbor?
The Vyers ask her, well, why don't you stay for a while longer? And she's like, what they say, guests and fish.
What is that?
Oh, guests and fish both they go rotten after a couple days.
Ooh. Brutal.
Yeah.
But I mean, now we're like, get out by 9. So who's more brutal?
I mean, but that's the whole point, is like, if you overstay your welcome, you kind of get rotten.
True.
That's the
I understand that, yeah. You never want to be that person.
Which is why the Vyers say, well, we actually have a neighbor who's about to be moving, or who's trying to get rid of his castle because he can't keep up with the costs of running it. Why don't you be our neighbor? And she's like, oh, well, let's go check it out. So,
fun fact that they said about him in this conversation, though, if I can interject, is some say he sings to seals. You gotta represent this man right. He's whimsical.
He's a whimsical little dude.
Little dude.
He's very silly. He's a widow himself, and I think the man who, because we'll get to it in a few minutes, because I think we've got another scene coming up. But
yeah, he's in a few.
The guy that plays that part, the first time I saw him was in V for Vendetta, and he plays a disgusting child-loving priest, and he has this whole, like...
What range?
What?
This guy has range.
Yeah, but I can't see him as, like, this whimsical sings to seals old man.
I'm so glad I haven't seen that movie
at the castle, because I keep seeing him as this, like, priest who is about to be kicked in the nuts by Natalie Portman in some pigtails. And it's just
what range? I say again, I don't know what else to say about that. Good actor.
Anyway, so they're gonna go. They decide the next day they're gonna go and check out this castle and sing and meet the old man who sings to seals, and see if she can't maybe find a good price for a nice castle. That
right. Try to see what she can get for it. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, yes, our next scene, we're skipping back to the tour. The tour. So they're in Bermuda. They just arrived.
Yep.
And Liz is making her speech.
The first of many
speeches that she has to make. We find out pretty soon how many. And Philip, you can just see it on him. He's
over it already.
He is so over it. He's like, because the speech concludes and they're walking away, and he's like talking to someone. And do you know the line I'm talking about?
Yeah, you can say it though.
Okay. He says, "Oh, what is it? Like, stay loyal or die." Is that it now? Can we knock off?
Yep.
All right. And he just like goes.
Like the party, we delivered the party line. So can we go home now?
We made the point. Let's
figured it out.
And so Michael Adine, the private secretary. So he is their like right-hand man who's keeping everything organized. So he's going over the daily itinerary, is reminding them, all right, well, we got to get moving because like we got to get to this next place.
Yep.
And he's listing all of these engagements back to back. And I wrote, literally, he lists it all and I can't keep up.
Okay.
So Philip says, well, will we find a moment during any of this to use the lavatory? I do hope tomorrow's better.
So he basically, from the beginning, we're seeing Philip is like super unhappy. This is a very demanding public schedule that they're setting up right from the start. It is, it's fast paced. It is a lot of engagements, a lot of different meetings, a lot of demand, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, it's not physically or really mentally taxing. He just has to be there in a suit.
Yeah.
All the time, and he has to like have a little smile on his face.
I will say, like, being that like I've worked as a barista at coffee shops, and during the slow times, you're just standing behind the counter for hours, and literally no one will come up, and it's just like, dude, why am I even here?
Yeah,
I could be anywhere else, and I can kind of see that might be something he thought. It's just like, why am I here?
Yeah.
I could be doing so much more productive stuff elsewhere.
Well, he also understands that like these territories might want independence for good reasons. And
he does bring that up.
Thinks that it's dumb that this whole tour is literally about her telling them, you stay loyal to the crown. I'm still here. Hello, look at me. I'm the queen. I'm alive.
Mama's home.
Mama's alive. Be loyal to me. Children's. So
wait, mother knows best.
Literally,
right.
yeah, fucking
from Tangled,
yes.
Mother Gothel,
yes. Yeah. And he's kind of calling it out for the imperialist bullshit it is.
Spitting facts.
Right. And basically is told, like, no, this entire expectation of this tour is to do this from country to country over and over. They're going to Jamaica the next day, and they're going
they're getting up at 4:30.
Yeah, the very next morning.
For a 6 a.m. flight, and they're going, pooh, Jamaica.
Yeah. So they're setting the tone for a very busy, very jam-packed, very, very, very exhausting travel schedule around the globe.
Yeah.
For the next
23 weeks.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine. It's not a vacation.
No.
It is not. So they're on the plane to Jamaica, and Philip is continuing his complaining campaign.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to say. He just continues to complain.
Yeah.
Hoping eventually that people will have TVs everywhere and they won't have to come out and see them. He's just very bitingly funny. Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, very bitingly funny. Meanwhile, Michael is still going over the itinerary.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever stops.
No, this is what we're going to see in this episode is a whole montage of parades and speeches and parties, and Michael Adine saying over and over again what the next itinerary is for, and going over speeches and like how they speak of different nations and making and going over notes with the Queen. He is basically at this point he's more kind
he's telling the Queen what to do.
He's more intimately involved with Elizabeth than Philip is. Philip's just there to be arm candy.
So they're going over the itinerary, and so we kind of get a cut to TV news footage of the trip, and it's being watched by Margaret.
Right.
Her private secretary, which is Martin.
Yeah.
I did not realize this in the scene, but
because he still gets to be a private secretary. It's just the
next rung lower.
He's the junior.
Yeah.
So
which is, I guess, why he was Elizabeth's private secretary. It all comes together.
Yeah.
Look at that.
There it is.
Consistency.
There it is.
Hey.
Because I think Adine was, like Tommy was King George's, and then Michael Adine was probably Queen Mary's.
Oh.
Or Queen Elizabeth's. The first one. Cookies. He was probably Cookies.
Yeah. And then, okay. But then who's the private secretary? Oh, no. He got his best buddy, his bro friend, Philip. His private secretary is his bromance guy.
Is that? Oh, that's who it is. Okay.
That's his private secretary.
Interesting.
I figured that out last episode, I think.
Okay, I thought it was just like his club buddy, like his army buddy.
He got an official job, but they're like bros.
Okay, but that guy is technically also his private secretary. Mm-hmm. Fucking beautiful.
That's why it's such a big deal later on, because he's so close. Because he literally is every single move. He's there.
I understand now.
Yeah. Okay. So whenever, so we'll get there.
It's clicking.
Anyway, so Margaret's catching up on Elizabeth and what she's up to. And so Martin comes in and wants her to kind of read and go over the speech that she's going to be giving at this event coming up. I guess a bunch of ambassadors. Yeah. Yes, that's the big speech that she's got coming up. And so she takes a quick look at it and she's kind of like, can you give me a pen? And like, I want to make a few changes.
Yeah, I want to make some of this my own. It's written in the words of Elizabeth instead of for Margaret.
Well, it's written in the words of the Crown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she wants it to be written in the words of Margaret.
Yeah, because Margaret's running the show.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So she starts, we get to the next scene of her, and she is writing her changes in her office. Mm-hmm. She's then calls Martin in, and she like lets him know, like, okay, so this is the speech I'm giving. He takes a look and he was like, no. And she's like, I wanted to have some character, some life. She keeps talking. Yeah, she keeps talking about breathing life into something that's, old and antiquated, essentially, because it's been going on for thousands of years. And so Martin reminds her that there's a lot of important people and they all have very different sensibilities and, thresholds for humor. We just wrote this very specifically for everybody's palate to be so no one's offended or insulted.
Yep.
And she's like, well, it's not entertaining. And Martin's like, well, it's not the sovereign's job to be entertaining. Again, you're standing in for the sovereign. Remember who you're filling in for.
Right. So she doesn't understand. She's still not getting the point.
Yeah. Yeah. And Margaret's like, well, I'm not the sovereign. And she goes, and then Martin has to straight up tell her, you are filling in for the sovereign. You
are acting for and on behalf
I feel like he was just holding back the will to shake her. Mm-hmm. So now we get fast forward to the event.
All right.
First off, fashion. Her dress
is very pretty.
Yes. I wrote down just a quick little snippet on the dress. Basically, before we get to the dress, though, she is talking to her stylist. I keep calling them stylists.
She's choosing specific jewelry, and she chooses the queen's jewelry.
The tiara.
And they're like, that's for the queen. And she usually reserves it for these things. And she's like, yeah, but what good is it if it's never going to actually be worn?
True. And then she says, that she won't mind. The queen won't mind. And I'm like, maybe. So the dress. It is strapless, first off, with like a really nice like sweetheart neckline. Yes. That's kind of got some fabric. It's a very light kind of sheer fabric, but it's kind of a dark seafoam green, kind of muted. And it has all this beautiful floral embellishments on it, like embroidery that kind of sparkle. So it's flowy. It's gorgeous. She's got a matching shawl. And she did choose I think it might be the Cambridge's Lover's Knot. I should have probably gotten a picture of it and put it in here. But it's gorgeous. It's stunning. So she's arriving into the room, and all the ambassadors are there. And so is Martin. Martin's watching from the crowd. And Margaret, let me get to the actual speech part. Basically, she had this, I said that her speech, because she's about to give the speech, she kind of starts off very poetry.
Yes.
Cool breeze.
She's like, oh, my sister's in this beautiful, beautiful place
with
in
the
this
music.
Paradise. And I would like to say that about you all.
Well, she does. She's like, well, that's what I see out here tonight.
Yeah, and then she gets all Margaret.
I said late night host.
She does. She totally gets late night host.
That's kind of the vibe I was getting.
It's very stand-up comedian giving the, like, State of the Union, or what is it?
It is.
The press, what's that dinner
Oh, I don't know, but I know, the concept of the conference.
The White House press dinner.
Yeah, I think something like that, where there's a comedian, he gives a big speech, and the whole point is to kind of point out people in the audience, make a lighthearted joke.
Yes, it's a little bit of a roast.
Right. but it's light and everybody seems to love it.
They're enjoying it.
They're enjoying it. They're
immensely.
laughing. But you just see Martin and he is just
livid. He is beside himself.
He is, I think I said, Martin is cringing so hard in the back.
I mean, it is kind of cringy. She's insulting a lot of people.
She insulted her brother-in-law.
And people are like laughing, but also this is going to make the front page news the next day.
The fact that there was a lot of humor in this big state banquet thing. I mean, So I wrote, I think she did a great job, and she does too, but this was a queen's job, and she was no queen.
Nope.
So we flash to Margaret retelling it. She's on the phone to Peter.
Uh-huh.
And so they're all excited. He's saying it was great, that it was in the news. And Margaret says that she wants him to come out and see her do this sometime over the next few months while she's in, doing all these little bits.
Yeah, she loved the attention. She really thrived in it. And so she's decided over the next few months, she's going to go on all of these engagement tours, on all of these speaking
book me for everything.
Literally.
Yeah. And he says it's too risky for him to come out there. I mean, it would be in all the papers. And she goes, but the papers love us.
Yeah.
The people love us. They are for us.
Yeah, they have that public support, and she's trying to kind of capitalize on that. And he understands that it's just a bad idea and that what she did was pretty reckless in general.
Yeah, absolutely. He didn't, and I think Peter is not so confident in that because he just kind of gives a little stone face, and that's the last we see of that conversation. So we don't really know from this point where he's at.
Yeah.
We're back on the tour. We're back to Liz and Philip, and she's getting ready for another engagement. He is just like she looks like she has just this, somebody's putting pearls on her. She just looks dissociated from the situation of getting ready. She's just staring into space. And so Philip's kind of asking what's going on. And she's talking about she saw Margaret in the paper and how that state banquet thing went. And she's upset. You can tell. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what? Did she mess it all up? And she goes, no. She was dazzling.
Loved her.
They loved her. They really loved her. And Philip's like, well, what, did you want her to mess it up? Like, did you want her to fail? That's a good thing, right? That she did well. And she's like, no. Maybe I'm a little
jealous,
maybe perhaps I didn't really want her. So, apparently she's a little jealous.
A little bit.
Mm-hmm. And she asks, is it awful of me? And Phil's like, yeah.
Yes. Objectively, yeah. Mm-hmm. Not great.
Yeah.
This is not a good look.
Yeah. So he says that he has faith in Margaret, though, and that she'll mess it up at some point. That's the faith he has in her.
Yep.
He's confident that she'll fail.
Yep.
And Liz is worried about being outshone. So she goes, well, she'll outshine me and mess it up, but she'll outshine me. And so we get to the root of it is
jealousy. Mm-hmm. It's envy. We've been talking about that.
Yeah.
She's jealous and Margaret's jealous and...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least Liz is now admitting it to herself.
Yeah.
That's, I think, what's happening here. And Philip seems pretty empathetic about it. I really appreciate that about him, where he's like, look, I get it. But she's not, don't worry.
He also sees Margaret's antics for what they are, which is a plea for attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Phil, I keep calling him Phil. All right, I'm going to keep going. So Phil switches topics. Now he's saying, don't you think we're outdoing that? Like, we're overdoing this? 57 towns in 57 days. That's 1 day off.
What?
That's the trip.
You mean 57 towns in 58 days?
Yeah.
You said 57 and 57.
Oh, I meant... oops. Did I not say earlier I'm bad at math?
That's 1 day off, and I'm like, no, that's the same.
I was wondering why you weren't saying anything. I was like, maybe if I just give her a moment, she'll know that it's her turn.
Does not compute.
No, yeah, they only get 1 day off. It's 58 days of a tour, and they're hitting 57 towns. So that's constantly on the move.
And this is like after they've already been to a few towns already. Like they've already been traveling and they're getting exhausted already. This is like
I wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah.
So Liz thinks, what? No, I'm keeping every appointment. Like I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And so now we flash to them going to the car for the next parade. And Michael is letting them know it's going to be 2 hours in 100-degree weather in a convertible.
This is an interesting scene to me. I always did really appreciate this because we've been up to this point. We've been kind of making fun of them, like complaining, like, "Oh, you're in, these fancy things, and you're doing all these events, and like, what a hard life." They didn't have air conditioning.
Right.
They were in open air,
humidity,
hot clothing, and layers that they
it's
could
organza.
not take off. But it wasn't light enough. It's not nothing.
It's a lot of layers of organza.
It's a lot of layers of organza, which doesn't actually breathe that well. It's a whole fucking uniform and a hat for Philip.
Yeah.
That is going to keep him a little overheated. It's not like they are going to be able to be drinking a lot of water.
Yeah.
They have to be waving the whole time for parades, for
smiling.
2 hours of a parade of people because there's so many people out there. And now she knows she has this public duty. She can't let them down because they all showed up for her. She has to be there.
Yeah.
And the way that they film this is really, I really liked it. So it's that old school. We're seeing kind of the slowed down scenes, the
slow motion,
that they're very famous for, that cinematography of like these kind of moments in news. And so you're seeing these shots that look like stills from a newspaper, but it's slowly like them going through this parade, and there's all the confetti that's falling. And Elizabeth, you can see like the smile is glued on her face.
Yeah, it's
her eyes are tired, and she's doing this specifically because of everybody else. And Philip at this point has lost all sense, like all pretense of pleasure, of happiness, of any of this. He's just staring daggers at her. He's not looking at anyone else.
He is not the workhorse she is.
Yeah, he's just kind of slouching and staring at her, and she's basically kind of staring daggers at him, but also has to keep smiling during this very awkward and long hot parade.
Hot.
Yeah.
Hot
and humid.
Sorry, that's from South Park. Hot.
Okay.
Sorry. I was having fun with that. But yeah, that was a gorgeous shot. I loved it.
Scene.
Stunning, slow motion, queen wave. You know the one I'm talking about. And luckily, they get through it.
Right.
They do. And now we get to move to Cookie. I'm going to work on segues.
Okay. So Cookie, they make it a hike. It's not like they don't have a car that they can go up, and they don't take their horses. The Vyers and Cookie, they go on this nice hike up the beach and up this little hill, and on the very like edge of the coast there's this
right on the edge,
cute little castle.
It does look kind of modest for a castle, doesn't it?
It's a little castle. Like
it's adorable.
I mean, it's cute. And so they go over and they knock on the door, and it's this colonel who used to, or something.
Captain Imbert Terry. I wrote his name down.
Yep. And he used to, I guess, work with Vyers, and they get introductions, and he can't place Cookie. He's like, I know you've met before, right? And she says, no, I'm sure we haven't. And he goes, you look familiar. I'll figure it out. Don't tell me. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of go through this tour, and he's basically explaining, well, the roof needs some work, and the windows need replacing.
Red flag.
Really, it really isn't like a good. I mean, there's no bathrooms and there's no electricity. Like, you'd really be putting a lot of money into it. I'd almost rather make it a gift.
Yeah.
And she said, no, I can't accept it because of who I am. And he said, oh, you're an actress. You're a singer. You're someone. And she's like, no, I'm not. And
I know.
I'll figure it out. I'll get there.
Oh, he's so sweet.
He's such a silly guy.
No singing, though. We didn't see it.
But basically, there's kind of this moment. He moves on, and he's talking to the Vyers, and they're still talking about the castle. But we hold back on Cookie looking through the castle and kind of looking at this space as though she can maybe make a new beginning there.
Yeah, she's like imagining it.
Yeah, she's able to kind of see herself in this space, and you see a little bit of a smile on her face and a little bit of a joy in her eyes because...
Well, Mrs. Vire gives her a big-ass smile.
Yeah.
That was overdone.
She sees...
I wrote a joke. I was like, thruple? Just kidding.
No, she sees the kind of the joy on Cookie's face.
She's happy for her friend.
Knows. And that's where the scene ends, right?
Yeah, that's kind of where they end. We're just happy for Cookie.
We're seeing a little bit of hope for Cookie, you know, a nice little new beginning.
A little peaceful place for her. And I think her family is Scottish nobility, but I'll have to look it up. Maybe they descend from Scottish?
Yeah, no, that's why they go up there a lot.
That's what I thought. So now we move on back to the tour. And Liz is getting checked out by a doctor.
Liz has got... literally, she's got cramps in her face. She's got a spasm because she's been smiling so much.
Yeah, they're overworked. She overworked her damn face muscles.
Yes, and Philip is fucking livid at this. He is snarking all over the place. He's like, come on, you need rest. You need to take a break. And she's like, no. Can anything be done for this? And the doctor said, well, I guess we could maybe inject you with like a muscle relaxant. You'd have to be careful around soups. And she's like,
yeah, that was hilarious.
She goes, let's do that, sure. And
I was like, literally, he told you drool, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, Philip kind of giggles at that.
No, he doesn't giggle. He's upset. He's like, you'd rather just dribble on your dress instead of just take a break. He's mad. Yeah. He's upset because she's pushing herself too much. And it's just a lot.
And by there, he's also being pushed too much.
They're also just both very, they're over each other. It's been a lot of just around each other and a lot of pressure, a lot of social time. They've had...
That's a pressure cooker.
Very little privacy or very little time to kind of recover. It's a very demanding schedule on both of them.
Mm-hmm. It is.
When they used to have a lot of privacy from each other, basically. They all had a lot of time away.
Yeah, they did. We're going to take a little break from the tour as well.
Yeah.
We're going over to how's Margaret doing?
Margaret.
But we're doing it via Peter. So from Peter's perspective, he's in what I'm calling a news theater. It was basically like a common room. A lot of other people were there watching news footage of the tour.
Okay.
And also from, at home. Right. So they're getting a snippet of Margaret and everyone turns around to look at him. Mm-hmm. Group Captain Peter Townsend. Group Captain Peter Townsend. We're getting good at that. Margaret was apparently visiting a coal mine to do a tour for one of her engagements.
The coal mine.
The coal mine. So she tours the facility. Everybody's kind of giggling. Not giggling, but they're like still staring at him.
They're enchanted by her.
Yeah. Yeah. And she does like a quick interview after she's done. So this is one where I have it written out, but I'll go quickly. So it said, interviewer said, did you enjoy the mining, Your Royal Highness? And she goes, I did, very much, although it was jolly dusty down there. Some even went into my mouth, but I can assure you, it tasted delicious.
And they're all delighted, and they giggle, and they laugh,
exactly.
And it's funny.
Cue laughter. Then the interviewer asked, well, how were the conditions down there? Do you have sympathy for the miners that work in there? And she goes, oh, I couldn't fail to have sympathy for anyone who has to spend their working life down there. It's intolerably dark and hot and cramped. And meanwhile, Martin looks like he's shitting himself. Mm-hmm. She's speaking off script.
Yeah.
So she continues, to my eyes, it seems conditions are still very perilous for these poor, brave men who work underground for so very little. And then what would you say to the authorities regarding the matter? So she looks at Martin, and he looks super uncomfortable. So she goes, I have nothing further to say. And, well, who's the coal for? And then she goes,
someone very special in mind.
Yes, she does. And then somebody goes, is it Group Captain Peter Townsend? Are you missing him?
Very much so, yes.
Yes. And are you missing your sister, Her Majesty the Queen?
Rather less so. Not quite as much.
Uncomfortable Martin.
Yeah.
That's how she did, and Peter kind of looks on. I think he's sort of proud of her.
He understands where the charm comes from. He's like, okay, I can see that she's trying, and they are really just enchanted by her, but she can't. Quite.
She could have gotten away if they didn't ask about the coal.
Yeah, everybody can't quite watch her mouth just enough.
She knew they wanted to know, and so she played to their wants.
Yeah, exactly.
So we are now with Peter and Margaret on the phone afterwards. And Peter is like, why did you say that on the air? And she says, well, I did miss you. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
And he goes, that was not wise. And she goes, well, why not? And you can't use public events to diss your sister, piss off the palace. We need them.
Yeah.
And that is how we leave it at that, because that's, I mean, even Peter is telling her to rein it in.
Yeah. Margaret's getting a little too big for her britches.
I think so. She is. But now we're back on the tour again. And we're in Australia this time. And I know that because Philip is saying to Liz, well, who do you want to disappoint? A koala? He goes, we're dancing bears in the circus.
This is that scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they're in one of their bungalow kind of spots that they're frequently housed in as they go through these tours.
Mm-hmm.
And
a corporate rental.
Basically. 50s and 60s corporate rental for sure. Elizabeth is exhausted. She's had this injection. They've gone through these things. It's been days more, and they're in a whole different fucking country and just exhausted. And he's like, you've got to take a rest. Basically, the only people that you'd be disappointing is fucking koalas. And he kind of starts poking fun at her. He
is poking the bear.
Yeah, he's poking the koala bear for sure. And he starts stuttering. He starts making fun of her dad's stutter.
Oh.
And it pissed Elizabeth off.
Oh, she got up.
It sets her off, and she starts chasing him. Part of the reason they're kind of getting up, he's getting stressed. He decides he wants to have a smoke.
He wanted to take back one pleasure.
Gotten him to stop smoking years before because that's what her father had died of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he picks up a cigarette again, and he's basically like, I understand why he smoked 40 cigarettes a day. Like, I completely understand it.
Poor bastard.
Oh, and it set her off. So she is chasing him around, and basically she's like, you don't come back here, get out of here, don't come back. And she's chasing him, and she gets out of the house, and literally she's chasing
into
him
the field.
onto the lawn in the field on their house. And they both stop because they realize that 40 feet in front of them, there is a filming crew of paparazzi.
Mm-hmm.
And
they're all looking up like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And then Liz and Philip are like, oh, shit.
Yes. It is a weird moment. So Elizabeth and Philip go back in the house, and they kind of take a moment, and Philip's like, look, I'll go deal with it. And she's like, no, I got it. I'll handle it. So she puts on her little gloves and her hat and her little purse.
Yeah, she's like a sweet little queen.
Yeah, she gets all ready again. Like, it's like she couldn't handle
put her hair back.
Yeah, it was a whole. She couldn't be seen without her hat officially. So she goes out and she's all formal, and she's basically like, look, what do you need me to do to get that tape? And without a word, the man that was filming stops the tape. He takes the film the roll out. He puts it in a little thing, and he hands it right to her, and he just says, another gift. And just like that, what was going to be a very public scandal that Winston warned her not to ever have. Yeah. Just like that, it was gone.
Yeah. I was so moved. I was like, oh, they knew what would happen if they did continue. I mean, they would have first off been grilled.
She did use the very relatable line. She said, I'm very sorry about this. There was a marital spat. It happens in a lot of marriages.
Yes.
I suppose. Like, as I'm sure happens in every marriage.
Endearing to their humanity side of
basically, like
we've been married,
sure
right?
Y'all have had fights with your own partners before. Mm-hmm. I can't be the only one.
Please
don't let this get out on film. Like,
yeah. And I love that that's how it's just another gift. It's like, oh.
It's a very understanding human moment of like, we got you. I get it.
Yeah.
But also, like, she's the queen. Pretty much what she asks, you kind of have to do. So,
yeah,
there's
absolutely
no point.
Yeah.
You don't say no to the queen. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Now, someone you can say no to is Margaret, and that's exactly what Churchill is doing.
God, Churchill's pissed.
Churchill is pissed. So basically he's laying into her about the coal mine interview, tells her that she can't be herself. You can't be you. You can't make jokes, all right?
Wasn't the assignment.
It was...
You were there to be proxy to the queen. You weren't there to be Princess Margaret.
Yes. You were the
Fancy
crown,
pants.
not you.
Yes.
You were the thing you represent. You break the illusion. And so she says, well, no, they want a real person. They want to see someone not afraid to step out of line. And he goes, but that leads to the abdication. Yep. And here we go.
We go back again
to the abdication.
Edward.
And so he takes all her engagements away and is going to give it back to the Queen Mother.
Just like Cookie gets him back.
Yeah, Cookie gets it back. And she goes, well, Cookie's in Scotland. And he goes, I know. I'm sending someone to go get her. And so
Me want Cookie.
Me want Cookie. So we get to Cookie.
So Cookie's back in Scotland. And she goes back to...
settle the price.
So she goes back to meet with this guy. And when she shows up, she's nearly an hour late from their scheduled meeting time. And he goes, well, did you walk on the beach? And she said, yeah. And he goes, well, you didn't factor in for the wind. But the good thing is it'll be a breeze going back. You'll fly on by. So they get inside and they kind of settle down. And he sits her down and he looks at her and he says, I've had some time to think. And I've talked to my lawyer and I've settled on what I think is a fair price. How does 100 pounds sound? She's like, that's an absolutely ridiculous sum. What are you talking about? And he goes, no, I think it's more than fair, considering you're going to have to put tens of thousands of dollars into these repairs to make it livable. And I can't give it to you as a gift. I think it's a fair price. And she said, all right, well, fine.
Yeah, okay.
And
get a good deal, horse in the mouth.
It's very cute. And he says, if that's acceptable. And she says, yeah, I think it is. She looks around the castle again. She's showing that little contented, like, all right, yeah, I'm going to make a life here. And so they agree. They get up. He is walking her back on the beach. And they're having just this very nice little chat. And they're enjoying this gorgeous place.
It's stunning.
It is so remote and so hard to get to.
That's like they have the whole beach.
It's so beautiful, and they're just enjoying their day, enjoying the fact that like she's about to have this new castle. He's going to move out in a week because he's got family down, a few miles down the road. It's going to be just a nice, easy little transition. And then we get this guy running up the beach, and he comes and finds her. And he asks
Cookie
for the queen. He's getting Queen Cookie, and he's like, "Hey, your Majesty or your Royal Highness, we need you back at the castle. We need you back. We've got some speeches that you've got to come back to. We need you back in London." And she turns around and she's like, "I'm so sorry, I've got to go." And the realization hits his face, and he goes, "Oh my gosh,
yeah,
I just figured that out." And she goes, "Oh, You've remembered, huh?"
Yeah.
And he said, why didn't you tell me? And she goes, I didn't want you to treat me differently.
Yeah.
And you doubled the price.
And I love what he says where he's like, oh, it's
like a true Scotswoman. Yes. What a beautiful woman.
It was such a wonderful encounter.
Cute little like human moment.
Yeah,
right there.
Exactly.
So she has to go back to London and you kind of... It's this little bittersweet moment of like, I'm so sorry we got interrupted, but now and yay. So he goes back to his castle. She goes on and does her thing. And
yeah, that's unfortunately we don't get to see him again.
We don't. He
moves in with his sister.
He goes on.
Well, we do get to go back to the tour.
All right.
We're on a plane. Don't remember where they're
seems on their way to Malta. Remember?
Malta, which is by Gibraltar.
They're doing the speech where it's like, this is a home of happy memories.
Yes, and it's dangerous. Liz and Michael and Dean are discussing it, and then it looks like they suggest pulling out. And everybody's telling her to pull out, and she's the one who doesn't want to.
I have this specific quote that I really wanted to get into, because this is super important, because at this point, this has been months and months and months of her counselors telling her what to do and where to go, and her husband telling her what to do and where to go, and her private secretary telling her what to do and where to go, and her prime minister telling her what to do and where to go. And they're all advising, you can't do Gibraltar. It's just, it's not going to be safe, and we can't guarantee that we can't guarantee the safety of the royal family if they actually show up there. And she just kind of has had it. And she says, I am aware that I am surrounded by people who feel that they could do the job better. Strong people with powerful characters, more natural leaders, perhaps better suited to leading from the front, making a mark. But for better or worse, the crown has landed on my head. And she says, we're going.
Yeah. Remind everyone that she is the queen.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
Margaret forgot that she was queen.
Yeah, telling her she's got no character.
That she was queen. Winston forgot that she was queen.
Yeah, at some point when you're just getting too many directions, no one's listening to you.
Yeah.
You just got to remind them.
Yeah.
I imagine. Well, we get to Churchill because he's watching the news footage of them landing in Malta and finding out it was a smashing success.
Oh, yeah.
It went well. That's all I had for that scene.
It does.
Yeah, because it was very short.
It's very short.
Yeah, very short. Because we go back to Cookie. She's back in London.
Yep.
And she meets up with Margaret really quickly, who's watching footage of the tour. Margaret looks pissed. She does not seem as happy as everyone else with the smashing success.
Pouting. She got her assignments taken away.
Yep, she's pouting, realizing that she messed up and her sister's doing great.
Yep.
And it's unfortunately validating her feelings of inferiority.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. And so it looks like Cookie's proud.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Cookie is like, go girl, I knew you could do it.
Yeah.
And so the news is now predicting that the queen is going to go down in history, which I wrote true. Longest to reign.
She really did. Yeah.
Yeah, she did. She made her mark in many ways, actually. So now we're on to the scene where Liz arrives home. And yes, get to it.
Oh my God. Okay. So first of all, they come home and it's a cute little reunion of like, they're finally seeing Anne and Charles for the first time, and immediately Philip's running around with Charles like,
Phil is so excited to see the kids.
He's so happy to see his children. It's very cute.
That is so sweet.
They have a nice little reunion, and Elizabeth decides she wants to meet with her dear sister, and she summons her dear sister, and her dear sister shows up to the castle and is being escorted through Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
And she's like, I've been here before. I know my way around.
Why are you taking me places?
And they take her to the office.
The office.
This is where Elizabeth does her state affairs. This is where she meets with Winston. This is where she does her official business and her very official dressing
It's the queen's room.
It's the queen's office.
Yeah.
And Margaret is stopped outside and is led over, and she's like, wait, in here?
Yeah, this is where I'm being summoned?
Oh dear. Mm-hmm. And so she goes inside, and
she does
Elizabeth's doing her little wringing of her hands because she's really
I thought she
nervous.
had a sword. I thought she had the sword from the knighting, but maybe not.
I don't know.
I can't remember, but yeah, her hands are kind of in a together position. And basically, this is one of those scenes where our storylines come together.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's about Margaret being an individual.
So there's a quote here I wanted to...
For sure. It's probably one of the same quotes I have.
So we're talking about, obviously there's a lot of tension that we're about to break.
Oof.
But it kind of starts with Elizabeth trying to start with like the official admonitions.
Mm-hmm.
So she says, reparations will need to be made.
Yeah.
And Margaret says, well, to whom? And Elizabeth says, "To the people you offended. A general to whom, when asked if you'd like to dance, you replied, 'Yes, but not with you.'"
Yeah, that was something we didn't see. We thought that whole thing went well.
"I believe there was also a debutante you managed to make cry, and the dancers of Sadler's Wells, whom you refused to meet after arriving late for the performance. You showed individuality, and that made people panic. They don't want individuality. The last person who showed character almost took the ship down." And Margaret said, "You're enjoying this." Elizabeth's like, "Not a bit." And Margaret said, "Yes, you are, admonishing your unruly young sister."
Yeah.
And man, we get into...
Yeah, I've got the rest of that.
Envious thing. We don't have to quote...
No, I'm going to try to paraphrase it. Basically, it's a sister's fight.
It literally, it's all of this tension that's coming
Yes.
out of envy of the sisters.
Yes.
Margaret envies the attention and the power and the deference that Elizabeth is given at every single turn. And Elizabeth envies the character and the joie de vivre and the levity of Margaret's personality and her freedom to be able to pretty much do as she wants. And each sister is envious of one another and their lives.
Yeah, I think more than anything, Margaret's just upset in a weird way that sometimes even I get upset about it, where I feel like this other person always seems to succeed and nobody's ever worried about how she's going to do. But the second that Margaret gets a role, everybody's concerned. Everybody's kind of telling her all of this and that to kind of control her.
Yeah.
And that's where she feels like she isn't free. Even though from Liz's perspective, absolutely, she seems like she's free. She doesn't have responsibilities and people coming out to see her. And does she have to go on a 23-week tour? I don't think so.
No, and Margaret feels extra scrutiny when she is actually given these jobs because she wants to come into it with her personality.
Exactly.
And she's told that's exactly the
It's not in the job description, babe.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's all this frustration that they both have.
That training in like why it's important to not have that personality.
She has no idea that there's like a separation between monarch and monarchy.
She just knows the rich and
the pomp and circumstance,
famous life. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she doesn't realize
and she misses that attention that she had before it was her sister's show.
Yeah, and it seems like in the conversation, once they both get it out, that I want what you want. And you want what I want. And so then they get into the Pride and Joy nicknames. And so she says, like, "Oh, do you remember Father's, Pride and Joy? That's what Father used to call us."
Yep.
And so Liz says, "Margaret is my joy," or sorry, Elizabeth is my pride,
and Margaret is my joy.
And then this is where Margaret goes, but Margaret is my joy. I have to have something.
One win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they get into this bit about Margaret thinking people see her as evil.
There is so it's a discussion of kind of like the necessary duality. So where these two sisters grew up in very close in age but they had opposite roles. One of them knew she was going to be queen someday, and the other one knew that she was never going to have that.
She was just there to support her.
She was just there to support her. And as they get older, it kind of goes further in those directions where we see Elizabeth as being the ultimate good. Margaret feels as though she necessarily is going to be seen as the ultimate evil because
the brighter one sibling shines, the darker the shadow of...
Exactly. It's like Scar and Mufasa.
Yeah.
It's the...
But we know she's not Scar. She knows she's not Scar, but the shadow declares she is Scar.
She's jealous. This is a big inferiority complex. It's not her fault. She has no idea like how to deal with the fact that her sister has all of this power.
Yeah.
And she's not supposed to have any of this personality in order to help out with that.
Yeah. Which is why she never really had any engagements for a while. And she was excited to get some. I get it.
Yeah, basically this was like she kind of got slapped on the hand and it took her a while to be able to kind of grow back into that role.
Yeah. And so because of that, Margaret asks if Liz could just step out of line once in a while, make a move that's wrong, make a little tiny failure.
Yeah.
And
she wants Elizabeth to not be so perfect.
Yeah. And then Liz just brushes it off. Oh, you're tired.
No.
And she just needs it to bear life.
Yeah.
That was kind of dramatic. I'm sorry, girl. That's a little dramatic.
No, it is. It's a little, yeah, it's very, she was very melodramatic in this episode. And then when basically at the end, Elizabeth's like, we still haven't talked about, like, my office can help you with the apologies.
Oh, yes.
Like,
I
do
wrote,
you need help with this?
She switched into queen mode. You saw it with her body language.
Yep.
And she's like, do I have your word? Do I have your word that those apologies will be made? And it's just like, our office will do something for you. You know, if you need help, we'll draft letters. Because she's like even saying you can't even draft an apology. Maybe we should have the heads do it. And so Margaret leaves and we enter our last scene. Would you like to do our last scene?
It's a very simple one.
It's so wonderful. Go ahead.
It's so beautiful and so simple.
It's like an ASMR of a scene.
It is. It really is. Cookie is standing out at the edge of the cliff that her new castle is on. Her new old castle is on, and she's just enjoying the sea and the birds and the wind and the clouds and just letting herself be. And she smiles, and the screen goes black. And that's the end of the episode. That's it. It's just such a good little ending for, I mean, we're going to see her again, but like, it's just a nice little retirement for Cookie.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
And that was Pride and Joy.
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts?
I thought that was a very sweet episode for Cookie, but
Cookie's the only one who won.
Literally. And in this episode where, I mean, all of these things historically happened at different times, but like you kind of see all of the different types of sacrifices that the family makes.
Yeah.
For the firm. Not just Elizabeth, but all of these people.
All of them are in it.
Yeah. When duty calls, they have to answer.
Is there any storyline that you're excited to see develop? Like that started in this episode that we caught?
Not really. I mean, it most of it's a continuation or like a little one-off. Next episode, I think, is focusing more on Winston. And that's going to be an interesting storyline for sure.
It's called Assassins.
Oh, yeah. This is the episode that I like, that I wanted to talk about.
Is it titled Assassins?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is this, it looks like we might get an introduction to a character we're both excited for.
It says, as tensions with Philip increase, Elizabeth spends her time with her old friend Porchy, and Churchill's portrait is painted for his 80th birthday. Both.
I'm so excited. But anyway, yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
This has been another episode of The Crownening. And next week we will be talking about episode 9 called Assassins.
Assassins. Bye-bye.